and welcome to another Classic Movie Monday. And today we are going to be diving into a psychological thriller slash mystery. And as you can see by the title and thumbnail, we're going to be discussing the 1958 film Vertigo. This one is probably a classic just for the title alone and the fact that it is associated with one of the most well-known directors of all time, Alfred Hitchcock. And I think this is one of his strongest as far as critical acclaim is concerned, as well as holding up throughout the years, because it brings in a very interesting perspective onto things, and I think has some very interesting sort of developments within the plot that actually make it really unique compared to a lot of films nowadays. So I thought I would dive in and sort of discuss a little bit what this film is about without giving too much away, and then express my thoughts onto things. So basically, the best way I can describe this plot without really giving too much away is that it involves a sort of retired detective slash cop named John Scott. And most of the time throughout this film, he's referred to as Scotty, who's played by Jimmy Stewart, or James Stewart, however you want to call him. And basically, he ends up getting a request from an old friend named Gavin Elder, I believe. And he basically wants Jimmy Stewart's character, Scotty, to kind of be sort of a private eye on his wife, because he believes his wife is possessed by someone who passed away. So that's really where the plot sets itself up. It establishes Jimmy Stewart's character, Scotty's role within the film, as well as sets up for future kinds of twists and turns, because this plot has a lot of interesting elements within it, and I really do not want to give away where it ends up going, but it really starts from that end. He's given a task to do, and he accepts it. The acceptance of this task ultimately leads him to become sort of obsessed with the wife, and you will see what I mean as you gradually watch the film. You will see how he gets more dedicated to this particular work, and he sort of to the wife as a result. And I think really what makes it all work is the great performances and the brilliant execution of this plot. Alfred Hitchcock knows how to write stories, and this particular film was taken, I believe, out of a book. As far as to how accurate this film is to the book, I'm not necessarily sure, but what I can say from what Alfred Hitchcock did take, or did not take, he made a very overall engaging and interesting story. Now, I'm going to kind of be expressing again the fact that this is an older film, like it was made in 1958, so obviously the pacing might be an issue for younger audiences, similar to a lot of films that I've reviewed where they involve this kind of pacing. Like, you have to pay attention within this film. It's not like you can just sit there and, take in the fancy, swanky explosions and stuff. But regardless, you can kind of take in some of the scenery, though, too, because the scenery, actually, that they have is very nice, because it actually takes place in San Francisco. I believe it was shot there, too. So it goes to show the sort of dedication and effort that was put into it. But regardless, this film largely wants you to pay attention to it and really absorb what it's revealing. And the twists that Alfred Hitchcock takes, I think, are really interesting and amount to something that um, is all the more, I think, profound. Because again, you will see how it starts off being this way, and ultimately, as things end up going along, you see how ultimately things end up being revealed to being what they end up truly being. So that's really what I want to emphasize within this film, and I really do not want to give away the twists because they are, I think, really well done and very interesting, and something that maybe some people might have seen coming, maybe some people might not have seen it coming, but I think it is very elaborate. And I think that's what Alfred Hitchcock in particular does really well with his sort of twists. He kind of makes everything very elaborate and tie in together really well. You know, by the end of the movie, everything makes sense. Everything has a consistency to it to where you understand um, not only the plot, but where sort of the characters are coming from. Like you kind of understand why Scotty develops this sort of kind of crazy obsession, and you ultimately see the 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 sort of emotions that the wife kind of goes through as well. So that's really sort of at the heart and focus of this film. It's largely based on trying to set up something and then have it go somewhere different and kind of carry you, and at the same time carrying you on a journey, but that journey is very consistent in the way in which it's set up. So I think it's really brilliantly written and well directed, and the acting is top notch. I mean, Jimmy Stewart, you kind of feel like that these are sort of the characters that Jimmy Stewart plays, except this character in particular, Scotty, is a little bit more obsessive than his previous roles. But I would say you feel like it's Jimmy Stewart sort of putting on a performance, but it's more of the typical performance, but at the same time, it's a little bit more on the deranged side, because he can kind of get a little bit woohoo, a little crazy within this film. Not too crazy, but still kind of on the edge there. Um, and yeah, you really do get the sense that you are in this kind of very bizarre scenario, which it does play out as a very bizarre scenario. Um, and that's really what the film wants to focus on, is trying to set up this very elaborate plot that involves sort of this tragedy while at the same time getting you to thinking, and then also allowing you to see things through the sort of um, aftermath of once things are sort of revealed, because there is a big sort of revelation that ends up happening that sort of twists the plot into a kind of different direction, so to speak, which initially isn't revealed to Scotty's character, but we as an audience member know the twist beforehand. So that's another thing that I think is important to know. But it is one of those interesting works, and I think it's definitely worthy of a recommendation. If you're interested in the psychological thriller, if you're interested in a mystery, if you like putting pieces together, this is a film that is rather interesting, and I think something that people can enjoy. Like, if you enjoy films like The Maltese Falcon, I mean, this would probably be somewhere up your alley too. If you enjoy those kinds of classic black and white sort of, even though this one's in color, there's a slowness to these films that really shows you that it sort of takes its time and it doesn't try to carry you constantly from one scene to the next. You feel like there's a lot of weight to the scenes that are happening. So that's, I think, something also that's very important to note. It just depends, I think, I guess, on your level of attention span. Maybe there could have been some scenes that, you know, could have been glossed over or maybe ignored, but I think overall, its overall presentation is well crafted. But yeah, I think that's really ultimately all I can say about this film. Again, if there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year, and I hope to see you on the next video.